The stars looked different from Earth now. Captain Alex Chen had been staring at them through the viewport of Orbital Defense Station Epsilon for so long that his eyes burned, but he couldn't look away. Those weren't just stars anymore. They were beacons of warning, silent witnesses to humanity's greatest defeat. "Sir, the Council is requesting your presence." Lieutenant Rivera's voice broke through his thoughts. "They say it's urgent." Chen nodded, rubbing his temples. 3 years since first contact. 3 years since the Krax Imperium had descended upon Earth with overwhelming force, superior technology, and an ultimatum: surrender or be obliterated. Earth's governments had complied. What choice did they have? The Krax weapon systems could have sterilized the planet in hours. Instead, humanity had been graciously allowed to exist as a protectorate, a glorified mining colony for the vast empire that spanned half the Orion Arm. "Tell them I'll be there in 5, Chen replied, finally tearing his gaze from the viewport. The station's corridors were bustling with activity, a mixture of human personnel and the occasional Krax overseer. The aliens stood nearly 7 feet tall, their iridescent scales shimmering under the artificial lights, 4-fingered hands always hovering near their energy weapons. The unified Earth Council chamber was already filled when Chen arrived. Representatives from every major region sat in tense silence as Admiral Takahashi, the highest-ranking human military officer still permitted to serve, displayed holographic projections of the latest Krax demands. "They're increasing resource quotas by 30%, Takahashi explained, her voice tight with barely controlled anger. "Silicon, titanium, uranium, everything. And they're reducing our energy allocation for civilian use." Chen took his seat next to Dr. Sarah Okonkwo, Earth's foremost xenobiologist and the first human to communicate with the Krax. "This is unsustainable," she whispered to him. "We're already stretched to breaking point." "That's the idea," Chen replied quietly. "Break us down until resistance is impossible." The council meeting dragged on, a litany of impossible demands and dwindling options. Chen found his mind wandering to the rumors. Whispers passed among station crew. Reports from the underground resistance on Earth. Something was happening in the outer colonies, something the Krax were trying desperately to contain. As the meeting adjourned, Chen received a priority alert on his comm unit. Security breach in Sublevel 3, the restricted research section. He excused himself and hurried toward the turbolift, hand reflexively checking the sidearm he wasn't allowed to carry anymore. The sublevel corridor was eerily quiet when he arrived. 2 Krax guards lay unconscious on the floor outside the main laboratory, but showed no signs of physical trauma. Chen drew a breath and stepped through the door, unsure what to expect. "I wondered how long it would take you to get here, Captain." The voice came from a slight figure bent over one of the lab terminals. Lieutenant Thomas Park turned, his young face split by a grin that seemed wildly out of place given the circumstances. "Sorry about the mess. The lizards will wake up with nothing worse than a headache." "Park, you're supposed to be on Europa Station. What the hell are you doing?" Chen's gaze shifted to the lab terminal, where data streamed across the screen at impossible speeds. "Do you realize what they'll do to you, to all of us, when they find out you've accessed their network?" Park's grin widened. "They won't find out until it's too late. And I wasn't on Europa." "That's just what the records show." He gestured to the terminal. 3 months I've been on Proximab, working with the others." Chen felt his blood run cold. Proximab was quarantined after the colony fell silent. The Krax declared it off-limits after they lost contact with their garrison there, Park finished. "They told everyone it was a viral outbreak. It wasn't." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small metallic cube that pulsed with an inner blue light. "It was this." Chen stared at the device. "What am I looking at, Lieutenant?" "The reason I risked everything to get back to Earth." Park's expression turned serious. "The Krax aren't invincible, Captain. They're not even as advanced as they want us to believe. They've been stealing technology from other species for centuries, technology they don't fully understand. The cube floated up from Park's palm, hovering between them. This contains the complete schematic for their defensive systems, including the command codes to their orbital platforms. We reverse-engineered it from a crashed scout ship on Proxima. That's impossible, Chen whispered, though hope, dangerous, fragile hope, was beginning to bloom in his chest. Humans are good at impossible, Park replied. We're resourceful, adaptable. The cracks know it. It's why their protocols for Earth are stricter than for any other world they've conquered. They're afraid of us, Captain. A distant alarm began to sound. Park quickly pocketed the cube. They're starting to realize something's wrong. I need to get this to the resistance cells on Earth. He handed Chen a small data chip. This contains coordinates for a rendezvous point. 48 hours. Bring anyone you trust completely. You realize what you're talking about? Chen asked, his voice low. This isn't just resistance. This is revolution, Park finished. Humanity striking back. The cracks thought they could break us, turn us into just another conquered species in their collection. They were wrong. His eyes gleamed with fierce determination. The question is, Captain, are you with us? Before Chen could answer, the lab doors slid open. Admiral Takahashi stood in the doorway, her expression unreadable. Behind her stood Dr. Okonkwo and 3 other council members. The question, Takahashi said quietly, is whether all of us are with you. She stepped inside, closing the door behind the group. Because if we're doing this, Lieutenant, we're doing it right. Chen looked from face to face, seeing in each the same mixture of fear and resolve that churned in his own gut. The weight of the moment pressed down on him, the future of humanity potentially hinging on their next actions. The alarm continued to wail, growing louder. Soon, crack security would be swarming the station. Park held out the glowing cube. It begins with us, right here. Our chance, maybe our only chance. Chen took a deep breath and reached for the cube, his decision made. Beyond the walls of the station, past the artificial constellations of the Crack's fleet in orbit, the stars of humanity's home sky waited. And for the first time in 3 years, they didn't just look like warnings. They looked like promises. Chen's fingers closed around the cube, its surface warm and vibrating slightly against his palm. The moment stretched, heavy with significance, until the wailing alarm jolted them back to reality. We don't have much time, Takahashi said, moving to the lab terminal. Her fingers flew across the interface. I'm initiating containment protocols. Officially, it's a level 3 biohazard alert. That should buy us 20 minutes before the cracks override it. Dr. Okonkwo approached Park, her dark eyes scrutinizing him. How many survived on Proxima? The last transmission mentioned 800 colonists. 512, Park answered, his expression clouding. The crack's bombardment was thorough, but those who survived learned quickly. He gestured to the cube in Chen's hand. That's not the only tech we salvage. We've been studying their weapons, their communication systems, even their biology. Count Siler Zhao, representing the Asian coalition, stepped forward. What happened to the crack's garrison? Park's lips quirked in a humorless smile. Let's just say humanity isn't as defenseless as they thought. The garrison commander underestimated what desperate scientists could accomplish with salvaged Crack's tech and a lot of motivation. Chen pocketed the cube and checked the corridor. We need to move. Each of you take different routes to the shuttle bay. Bring only those you trust with Earth's future. No communications. The cracks monitor everything. Count Solar Rodriguez from South America raised a hand. Captain, the crack's satellites will detect any shuttle launches. They'll blast us out of the sky before we reach atmosphere. Not if their defense grid is temporarily recalibrated, Park said. That data cube isn't just schematics. It's a key, but we'll only have a narrow window, maybe 90 seconds. As the group dispersed, Chen caught Takahashi's arm. Admiral, are you certain about this? If we fail, if we fail, we're no worse off than the slow death we're facing now, she replied, her weathered face set with determination. My grandfather survived the Tokyo firebombings in 2045. He used to tell me that sometimes survival means taking the impossible chance. She straightened her uniform. Besides, I've been waiting 3 years to wipe that smug look off the Imperium governor's face. Chen nodded, feeling something like purpose rekindling in his chest. Shuttle Bay, 1800 hours. Travel light. The station corridors seemed different now, charged with possibility rather than despair. Chen moved methodically through his duties, fighting to maintain a facade of normalcy while his mind raced with contingency plans. The weight of the cube in his pocket felt like it could burn through the fabric at any moment. In his quarters, Chen accessed his personal terminal one last time. Buried beneath layers of innocuous files was a collection of images. His parents' home in Seattle, now within the preservation zone, where humans were allowed limited autonomy. His brother's family on Mars colony, their communications growing increasingly sparse under crack censorship. The crew of his last command, the UES Defiant, most now scattered across labor camps throughout the system. Ken encrypted the files and cleared the terminal. From a hidden compartment in his uniform collar, he removed a faded photograph, physical, not digital, of a dark-haired woman standing before the pre-invasion London skyline. He tucked it into his breast pocket, alongside the data chip Park had given him. At the designated hour, Chen made his way to the shuttle bay. Security was heavier than normal. The biohazard alert had raised the station's threat level, but his command code still granted him access. Inside, he found the others already waiting by Shuttle 4, the smallest and oldest of the station's transport vessels. "We've got a problem," Dr. Okonkwo whispered as he approached. "Shuttle Bay Supervisor Krell is on duty. He's one of the captains." Chen tensed. The captains were humans who had aligned themselves with the cracks, either out of self-preservation or ambition. They were given minor authority positions and better living conditions in exchange for enforcing cracks' rule over their fellow humans. "Leave him to me," said a soft voice from behind them. Ken turned to see Dr. Nadine Chen. No relation. The station's medical director and his ex-wife. She held a small injector in her palm. "Nadine, what are you doing here?" She gave him a look that carried the weight of their complicated history. "Did you think you were the only one planning resistance all this time? My entire medical staff has been documenting cracks physiology for 2 years." She nodded toward Krell's office. "I have legitimate reason to give him his required immunization." While Nadine dealt with Krell, the others boarded the shuttle. Chen did a final head count. 12 people in total, representing the seeds of what might become humanity's last, best hope, or its final mistake. The shuttle systems hummed to life under Park's expert hands. "Retrofitted the navigation system last month," he explained. "The cracks won't be able to track us once we're out of visual range." Takahashi settled into the co-pilot's seat, and the rendezvous coordinates. "A mining facility in the asteroid belt," Park replied. "Officially abandoned after a radiation leak last year. Actually, it's been our forward base for months. The cracks avoided. Their scales are surprisingly sensitive to certain radiation frequencies." Dr. Okonkwo leaned forward. "That's consistent with what we've observed in the specimens we've acquired." Chen didn't ask how they had acquired cracked specimens. Some details were better left unspoken. The shuttle bay doors remained closed as Park completed pre-flight checks. Nadine slipped aboard, her expression grim. "Krell's unconscious, but his biosign monitor will alert crack security when it detects the anomaly. We have maybe 5 minutes." Park nodded and removed the glowing cube from where Chen had placed it in the shuttle's interface port. "This is where it gets interesting. When I activate this, every crack system on the station will experience a 3-minute reset. Life support and gravity won't be affected. They are on separate systems, but all communications, weapons, and security doors will go offline, including the bay doors." Rodriguez asked. "Especially the bay doors," Park confirmed. But also the defense grid. Once we're out, we'll have 90 seconds to get beyond their weapons range before everything comes back online. Counselor Zhao fastened her harness. And if we don't make it in 90 seconds, Park's expression was solemn. Then at least we tried. Chen looked around at the faces of his companions, some friends, some strangers united by a common cause. The fate of humanity might rest on their actions in the next few minutes. Fear and doubt crowded his thoughts, but beneath them burned a fierce, primal determination. Activated, Chen ordered. Park pressed his palm against the cube. It pulsed once, twice, then emitted a blinding flash of blue light. The shuttle systems flickered momentarily, then stabilized. Now, Park said, his voice tight with concentration. The bay doors slid open, revealing the vast blackness of space beyond. Park engaged the thrusters, and the shuttle shot forward into the void. Behind them, the station's lights dimmed, then extinguished completely, leaving only emergency beacons blinking in the darkness. 60 seconds to weapons range, Takahashi announced, watching the countdown on her display. Chen's eyes were fixed on the view screen, where Earth hung like a blue jewel against the blackness. Beautiful, distant, and held hostage. The Crack's orbital platforms surrounding the planet remained dark and dormant. For now. 30 seconds, Takahashi called, her knuckles white against the edge of the console. The shuttle hurtled through space, engines straining as Park pushed them beyond recommended safety limits. Behind them, the station remained dark. Beyond it, Earth continued its silent rotation, oblivious to the desperate gambit unfolding in its orbit. They're coming back online, Dr. Okonkwo warned, watching auxiliary sensors. Power signatures rising across the Crack's platforms. Chen felt sweat beating at his temples. Park, 15 seconds to safe distance, the lieutenant responded, his voice unnaturally calm as his hands danced across the controls. Maybe less if I can coax a little more from the engines. A crimson light blinked on the console. They're tracking us, Nadine said, leaning over Park's shoulder. Weapons systems initializing. The first energy burst from the nearest Crack's platform illuminated the view screen with blinding intensity, missing the shuttle by mere kilometers. The vessel shuddered as the energy wake washed over them. Radiation shield holding, Rodriguez reported from the engineering station. Barely. Another burst, closer this time. The shuttle lurched violently, sending unsecured items clattering across the deck. Park made a minute adjustment, his face bathed in the glow of the controls, eyes fixed on the trajectory calculations. Brace, he shouted as a third beam sliced through space directly ahead of them. Rather than evade, Park drove the shuttle straight toward the dissipating energy trail, using the residual radiation to mask their signature. The gamble paid off. The next Crack's blast went wide, targeting their previous position. "We're clear," Park announced moments later, allowing himself a tight smile. Entering stealth protocols. The shuttle's lights dimmed as it shifted to minimal power mode. The hum of the engines dropped to a whisper as they drifted into the shadow of a defunct Earth satellite, temporarily hidden from Crack sensors. Chen released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Time to rendezvous point. 18 hours at current velocity, Park answered. We'll need to make 3 more stealth jumps to avoid detection corridors. The gravity of what they'd done, what they were attempting to do, settled over the cabin. 12 humans, fleeing the most powerful alien force known to mankind, carrying what might be the key to humanity's liberation, or the trigger for its final destruction. Counselor Zhou broke the silence. Perhaps now, Lieutenant Park, you can tell us what awaits us at this rendezvous point. Who exactly are we meeting? Park exchanged glances with Takahashi before answering. The resistance isn't just on Proxima B. There are cells throughout the system. Mars, Europa, the mining colonies on Titan. Even a few among the Crack ceremonial guards on Earth. How? Chen asked. The Crack's communication monitors. Air designed to detect their own technology, Park finished. We're using modified versions of pre-invasion quantum entanglement communicators, primitive by crack standards, which is exactly why they never bothered looking for them. Dr. Okonkwo nodded appreciatively. Hiding in plain sight by using obsolete technology. Clever. The rendezvous point is where representatives from all resistance cells will meet, Park continued, including some unexpected allies. Meaning? Chen pressed. Park hesitated. Not all species in the Crack's Imperium are willing subjects. We've made contact with 3 other subjugated races. They've been fighting the Cracks longer than we have, with limited success. But they never had access to this. He tapped the data cube, now secured in a shielded compartment. The journey continued in tense silence, broken only by necessary communications as they executed the planned stealth jumps. Each maneuver brought them closer to the asteroid belt and farther from the relative safety of known space. During the 3rd jump, disaster nearly struck. A Crack's patrol cruiser altered course unexpectedly, coming within visual range of the shuttle. Park killed all systems immediately, allowing the vessel to drift ballistically while the cruiser passed. For 17 agonizing minutes, they floated in total darkness, the only sound their own measured breathing as the massive alien warship loomed outside, its hull emblazoned with the distinctive crimson insignia of the Crack's subjugation fleet. When they finally reactivated systems, the strain was visible on every face. No one had expected to get this far. Hope was a dangerous luxury they were only now allowing themselves to consider. The asteroid belt appeared on their sensors 8 hours later. A chaotic band of rock and ice fragments, perfect for concealment. Park navigated through the debris field with practiced precision, eventually bringing them toward a particularly dense cluster. There, he said, indicating a large irregular asteroid rotating slowly against the backdrop of Jupiter beyond. Mining Station Vega. The station was dark as they approached, showing no signs of life or activity. Its surface was pockmarked with impact craters and extraction sites, the abandoned equipment casting long shadows in the dim sunlight. I don't see any other vessels, Chen observed, unease creeping back into his thoughts. They're there, Park assured him, hidden in the extraction caverns. Standard protocol. As they drew closer, a narrow opening became visible on the asteroid's surface, an airlock large enough to accommodate their shuttle. No lights guided them in. Park navigated purely by memory and instinct. The shuttle settled onto the landing pad with a gentle shudder. Outside, emergency lights flickered on, bathing the cavern in crimson. Figures moved in the shadows, approaching the shuttle with weapons drawn. "Friends of yours?" Nadine asked, her voice tight. "They should be," Park replied, though his hand moved to his own concealed weapon. The airlock cycled, and Chen steeled himself as the door slid open. The greeting party consisted of 6 humans in mismatched environmental suits, all carrying modified mining tools repurposed as weapons. Their leader, a tall woman with a jagged scar across her face, stepped forward. "Authorization code," she demanded. Park recited a sequence of numbers and letters that meant nothing to Chen. The woman's posture relaxed marginally. "You're late," she said. "The others arrived hours ago. They're waiting in the command center." Her eyes scanned the group, lingering on Chen and Takahashi. "These are your military experts." Park nodded. "The best Earth has left." She seemed unimpressed. "They'd better be. The Crack's fleet is mobilizing throughout the system. Something's got them spooked." Her gaze hardened. "You didn't bring them here, did you?" "We took every precaution," Park assured her. "So did Alpha Team on Titan," she replied grimly. "The Cracks still found them. 37 dead, including our best engineer." The news sent a chill through the group. Chen stepped forward. "We need to see the command center. Now." The woman studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Follow me, and keep your hands visible at all times." She turned to lead them deeper into the asteroid. As they passed through the mining facility, Chen saw evidence of the desperate ingenuity that had kept the resistance alive. Crack's technology merged with human equipment, improvised weapons, recycled food production systems. The few resistors they passed had the same haunted look in their eyes, people who had lost everything but were still fighting. The command center was a cavernous chamber carved directly from the asteroid's core and reinforced with salvaged metal. Dozens of people worked at various stations, monitoring communications and sensor arrays. At the center stood a holographic display of the solar system, with Crack's fleet movements highlighted in red. There were more non-humans than Chen had expected. Beings with features ranging from almost humanoid to utterly alien, all working alongside human resistance fighters with practiced coordination. Conversations halted as they entered. All eyes turned to them, specifically to the data cube Park now held openly in his hand. At the far side of the room, a figure stepped out of the shadows. Chen's breath caught in his throat. "Welcome to the heart of the resistance," said the man who approached them. "We've been waiting for you." Chen had seen that face countless times in historical archives and military briefings. It belonged to someone who had been reported dead in the first wave of the Crack's invasion 3 years ago. The resistance leader extended his hand. "Now," he said, "let's talk about how we're going to take back our planet." Chen stared in disbelief at Admiral William Harrington, former commander of Earth's orbital defense fleet, hero of the Luna conflict, and reportedly killed during the first wave of the Crack's invasion. The man was thinner now, with a cybernetic replacement where his right arm should have been, and a network of scar tissue covering the right side of his face. But his eyes still burned with the same intensity Chen remembered from academy lectures years ago. "Admiral Harrington," Chen managed, accepting the firm handshake. "How?" "Long story, Captain." Harrington cut him off. "One we don't have time for. Lieutenant Park's arrival means we move to Phase 2 immediately." He gestured toward a secured door at the rear of the command center. "Council members only beyond this point." As they followed Harrington through the door, Chen noticed Park exchanging coded hand signals with several of the alien resistance members. Something felt off, but he couldn't pinpoint what. The secured room was smaller, dominated by a circular table embedded with holographic projectors. Harrington placed his palm on a scanner, and a detailed map of the solar system materialized above the table. 3 years we've been gathering intelligence, building our network, and searching for weaknesses in the Crack's defenses, Harrington began. The data cube you've brought us is the final piece. With it, we can initiate a synchronized strike against every major Crack's installation in the system. The hologram shifted, highlighting key Crack's positions throughout the solar system. "The plan is simple," Harrington continued. "We use the command codes to temporarily disable their defenses, just as you did to escape the station. But instead of 90 seconds, our engineers have found a way to extend the window to 15 minutes, enough time for our strike teams to hit critical targets." "Strike teams?" Takahashi questioned. "What forces do we have?" "More than you might think." Harrington smiled grimly. "The Cracks have enemies everywhere, even within their own ranks. The Sithari." He nodded toward one of the insectoid aliens at the table. "Have provided us with ships modified to bypass Crack's detection systems." As Harrington detailed the plan, Chen's unease grew. Something about the timeline didn't make sense. He caught Nadine's eye across the table. She'd noticed it too. "Admiral," Chen interrupted, "how did you know Park was bringing the cube today?" The mission was put together in less than 24 hours. A sudden silence fell over the room. Harrington's expression didn't change, but his cybernetic hand made a subtle movement toward his side. "I think," said Counselor Zhao slowly, "that's an excellent question." The tension was broken by an alarm blaring throughout the base. One of the resistance fighters burst into the room. Multiple Crack's warships just dropped out of FTL. They're surrounding the asteroid. Park's face drained of color. "That's impossible. They couldn't have tracked us." "They didn't track you," Harrington said, his voice suddenly different, flatter, emotionless. He reached up and pressed a finger against his temple. The scared tissue on his face rippled, then seemed to melt away, revealing patches of iridescent scales beneath. They were already coming. Chen's hand flew to his weapon, but Harrington moved with inhuman speed, grabbing Chen's wrist with crushing force. "The real Admiral Harrington died 2 years ago," the creature said, its voice now carrying the distinctive harmonic undertones of cracked speech. "But his sacrifice has served the Imperium well." Through the doorway, Chen could see chaos erupting in the command center as more disguised cracks revealed themselves among the resistance fighters. The trap had been perfectly laid, and they had walked right into it. The false Harrington's grip tightened around Chen's wrist until he felt bones grinding together. Behind them, the command center had erupted into chaos, screams and weapons fire echoing through the asteroid base as more cracks infiltrators revealed themselves. "The cube," the creature demanded, its voice now fully cracks, the harmonic resonance sending chills down Chen's spine. "Give it to me now." Out of the corner of his eye, Chen saw Takahashi slowly reaching for her concealed weapon. The crack's imposter noticed too, his head snapping toward her with inhuman speed. That split-second distraction was all Chen needed. He drove his knee upward with every ounce of strength he possessed, striking the creature in its midsection, right at the junction of scales that Dr. Okonkwo had identified as a vulnerability in her research. The cracks howled, its grip loosening just enough for Chen to break free. Takahashi's weapon discharged, the energy blast catching the imposter in the shoulder. Greenish fluid splattered across the holographic table. "The cube," Chen shouted to Park, who had dropped to the floor during the initial attack. "Is it secure?" Park's hand moved to his pocket, his expression grim. "They can't access it without the activation sequence." The wounded Crack's commander lunged at Park, but Counselor Zhao intercepted it, driving a broken piece of equipment into the creature's throat with surprising strength. The Cracks collapsed, twitching. "We need to get to the hangar," Nadine said, pulling a stunned Dr. Okonkwo to her feet. "If we can reach the shuttle." "The shuttle's compromised," Chen realized aloud. "They let us dock. They've had hours to sabotage it." A deafening explosion rocked the base, sending dust and debris cascading from the ceiling. "The Crack's warships have begun their bombardment." "There's another way," said a voice from the doorway. One of the insectoid aliens, a Setheri, stood there, multiple arms gripping various weapons. "Emergency tunnels. Come now or die here." With no better options, they followed the Setheri through a maze of narrow maintenance corridors. The sounds of fighting grew more distant as they descended deeper into the asteroid. Twice they encountered Crack search parties, but the Setheri's reflexes were lightning fast, dispatching the enemies before they could raise alarms. "Why help us?" Chen asked as they paused at a junction to catch their breath. The Setheri's compound eyes gleamed in the emergency lighting. "Revenge. The Cracks destroy our homeworld. We fight with any who oppose them." They reached a small bay containing a single ship, sleek, alien in design, and barely large enough for all of them. "Setheri scout vessel," their guide explained, invisible to Crack sensors. As they boarded, another explosion, closer this time, sent tremors through the asteroid. Park worked quickly to interface the data cube with the Setheri ship's systems. "If I can broadcast the shutdown signal from here," he explained, fingers flying over the alien controls, "we might create enough confusion to escape." Chen looked around at their battered group, the survivors of what was supposed to be humanity's great hope. "And then what?" "The resistance is compromised. They know about the cube." "Not everything," Park said quietly. Something in his tone made Chen look closer. Park's hands were trembling, but his eyes burned with fierce determination. "What are you telling us?" "Lieutenant," Park's gaze met Chen's. "The cube was never meant to shut down their defenses permanently. It's a Trojan horse. Once they access the core data, trying to prevent us from using it again, it'll upload a virus into their central network." "What kind of virus?" Takahashi asked. "One that targets their biotech interfaces," Park replied. Every cracks connected to the command network will have their neural implants overloaded. Their entire command structure wiped out simultaneously. The implications were staggering. "You're talking about genocide," Nadine whispered. "I'm talking about survival," Park countered. "Humanity's survival." Before Chen could respond, the ship's sensors blared a warning. The cracks had found them. Energy weapons began pounding the hangar doors. "No or never," the Sethari pilot urged. Chen looked at the data cube, then at Park. The decision weighed on him like a physical force. The fate of humanity, and another species, in his hands. "Do it," he said finally, "but target only military networks. Command structures only." Park nodded grimly, making the adjustments. "Broadcasting now." The effect was immediate and dramatic. The energy barrage against the hangar doors ceased abruptly. The ship's sensors showed cracks vessels suddenly drifting, their systems in disarray. As the Sethari ship shot from the asteroid into open space, Chen watched the tactical display in stunned silence. Throughout the solar system, Crack's command ships were going dark, their coordinated formations dissolving into chaos. "It worked," Takahashi breathed. "We actually did it." But Chen's eyes narrowed as he noticed something odd on the long-range scanners. Beyond the orbit of Neptune, new signatures were appearing. Massive ships, neither human nor cracks in design. "Park," he said slowly. "Who else knew about this plan?" "About the virus?" Park's expression changed, a mix of guilt and defiance crossing his features. "The Sethari weren't the only species we made deals with. The Nix Collective provided the virus technology." The Sethari pilot hissed in alarm, multiple limbs working frantically at the controls. "The Nix?" Nadine asked. "Who are they?" Shen felt cold dread settling in his stomach as the massive ships moved into formation, clearly preparing to enter the solar system. The Crack's invasion might have been defeated, but humanity's trials were far from over. "They're not our allies," Chen said quietly. "They're the next wave." The Sethari vessel accelerated away from the asteroid field, its advanced engines pushing them toward the inner solar system. Behind them, the remains of the Crack's fleet drifted in disarray. Ahead, the mysterious Nix ships held position at the edge of the system, as if waiting. "We need to warn Earth," Chen said, breaking the heavy silence that had fallen over the ship's cabin. "If the Nix are planning an invasion—" "They're not," Park interrupted, his voice hollow with exhaustion. "At least, not in the way you think." All eyes turned to him. The lieutenant looked smaller somehow, the weight of his secrets finally taking their toll. "The Nix offered us the virus technology in exchange for access to our system," he explained. "They've been fighting the Cracks for centuries, pushed to the edges of their own territory. They need resources, new worlds. So we've traded one invader for another," Takahashi said bitterly. Park shook his head. "The agreement was for shared territory, not conquest. They need allies as much as we do." He looked directly at Chen. "I didn't tell you everything because I couldn't risk the plan failing. Humanity needed freedom from the Cracks at any cost." "That wasn't your decision alone to make," Chen replied, anger edging his voice. But even as he spoke, he wondered what choice he would have made with the same information. The Sethari pilot interrupted their debate. "Nix are sending communication. They request parley with human leaders. Can we trust them?" Dr. Okonkwo asked. The Sethari's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "Nix keep bargains, different from Cracks, but always for their benefit." Chen exchanged glances with Takahashi. They were still processing one victory while facing a new unknown situation. But something had changed. Humanity was no longer helpless. "Set course for Earth," Chen decided. "We've got what the Cracks never expected, knowledge of their weaknesses, allies of our own. And now, experience." He looked around at the battered but unbowed survivors. "We're done being conquered." The journey back to Earth took 3 days. As they approached their homeworld, they witnessed the aftermath of the virus's effect. Crack's ships hung motionless in orbit, their crews either dead or struggling to maintain basic functions without their command network. On the surface, reports flooded in of Crack's ground forces in disarray, their hierarchy shattered. The Resistance, despite the betrayal at the asteroid base, had survived in cells throughout the solar system. As news spread of the Crack's collapse, hidden fighters emerged, reclaiming territory step by hard-fought step. Chen stood on the bridge of the U.S. Defiant, his old command recommissioned in the chaos, as Earth's remaining military leaders prepared for the diplomatic meeting with the Nix representatives. Through the view screen, he could see their ambassador's shuttle approaching, escorted by a mixed guard of human and Setheri ships. "Are we making another mistake?" Nadine asked, joining him at the viewport. Chen considered the question carefully. "Maybe. But it's our mistake to make now. On our terms." He turned to face the assembled officers. Humanity has always adapted, survived. The Cracks thought they could break us because they were technologically superior, but they never understood what makes us human. "And what's that, Captain?" a young officer asked. "We don't accept defeat," Chen replied simply. "We learn, we change, we find another way." As the Nix shuttle docked with the Defiant, Chen felt a strange sense of calm. The future was uncertain. Negotiations with the Nix would be complex, rebuilding what the Cracks had destroyed would take decades, and there was no guarantee that other threats wouldn't emerge from the depths of space. But for the first time in 3 years, humanity stood on its own feet, making its own choices. The Cracks had seen humans as primitive, as prey. They had failed to recognize the truth that had defined human history since the beginning. "Underestimate us at your peril." Chen straightened his uniform and nodded to the security team. "Open the airlock. Let's show our new friends what humanity is really made of." As the doors slid apart, revealing the alien delegation beyond, Chen felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. But alongside it was something that had been missing during the long years of occupation: hope. Not just for survival, but for a future worthy of the sacrifices made to secure it. Humanity had struck back, and whatever came next, they would face it together, unbowed and unbroken.